समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
2025 has bruised much of the world's geopolitics, including India's. And yet, as it draws to a close, one cannot help reflecting how a few states have managed to turn chaos into opportunity, leveraging global crises to expand their diplomatic, economic, and defense footprint in ways that directly challenge India's security environment. And before you assume this is yet another piece about Pakistan, I'll clarify it's one of Islamabad's two main backers, Turkey. With the second largest land army in NATO after the US, Turkey has emerged as a disruptive outlier within the Western Bloc. It was sanctioned under the US CATSA Act for buying the S 400s from Russia and was also expelled from the F 35 program. It has transferred NATO grade warfare to middle powers through subsystem integration, reverse engineered defense technologies, skillfully compartmentalized its foreign policy whenever circumstances demanded, and projected itself as a global mediator in bloody conflicts from Ukraine to Caucasus to Syria. Now, that is the country profile of Turkey. The result is an agile, interest driven foreign policy anchored in an enduring commitment to Muslim Brotherhood ideology. Most strikingly, Ankara, under its 2019 Asia Anew strategy in the Indian subcontinent, has deepened engagement with our neighbors such as Pakistan and Bangladesh, both Islamic states, while simultaneously cultivating ties with Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Now, Asia Anew extends further into Southeast Asia, powered by the star performer of Turkey's resurgence, its bold, experimental, and fast paced defense industry. Now, for the record, Ankara's defense exports surged 30% year on year in the January to November 2025 period to hit an $8.5 billion this year. For a country that has for years oscillated between ambition and logistical constraints, this year has brought a series of developments, some carefully drafted, while others flowing from the wider turbulence of 2025. And taken together, these have propelled Ankara into a sharper geopolitical profile. With a nominal GDP of just $1.5 trillion, but a high per capita income of about $18,000, Turkey has experienced a phase of stabilization following years of economic and political volatility. Now, despite widespread resistance against its President Erdogan, reforms aimed at taming inflation, attracting investment, and trade have begun showing results. Now, this economic recalibration has coincided with an expanding global footprint, particularly in regions where Turkey had previously been underrepresented. For instance, Central Asia or East Africa and parts of Southeast Asia as well. And by the way, in Southeast Asia, Indonesia is Turkey's most important defense partner. Jakarta has purchased short range ballistic missiles from Turkey, entered into joint production agreements for drones, and is the first overseas customer for Turkey's Khan stealth fighter jets and Istif class frigates. Malaysia has ordered naval vessels and drones and might consider acquiring Khan fighter jets as well. And then the Philippines is Turkey's third largest defense customer in Southeast Asia, acquiring military vehicles, attack helicopters, and small arms from various Turkish arms makers. And there is more to Turkey's rise in Southeast Asia, but that's another story for another day. For now, let's come back to our region. And here, I'm of the opinion that New Delhi should be much more attentive. Turkey's indigenous drone programs, cruise missiles, naval modernization efforts, electronic warfare EW capabilities, and aerospace ambitions have all accelerated. The country's defense exports have climbed not just in volume but in sophistication. As of February 2025, Baykar commanded 65% of the worldwide UAV export market, which is the drone export market, reaching 34 countries. Several middle tier powers now in Southeast Asia, South Asia, Africa, Middle East, all of these consider Turkish systems more cost effective and geopolitically flexible than those offered by traditional defense industry powers like the US or Russia, especially as the US equipment remains expensive and Russia's defense industry grapples with overstretch and sanctions because of the war in Ukraine, while China's export pathways remain entangled in prioritizing economic diplomacy over weapon supplies, or at least at the level of optics, China still prefers economy. The cumulative effect is that Turkey has positioned itself as a hybrid actor. Where it cannot sell advanced weapons, it switches to subsystems integration. Where it cannot develop indigenously, it reverse engineers, and where it cannot give new solutions, it champions recycling. Now, let's take a look at Turkey and Pakistan, which is not just about buying and selling, as I've been saying repeatedly, but has become a case of complementarity. China's defense backing to Pakistan and Bangladesh is a theme which is well analyzed in Indian strategic circles. The same is not the case for Turkey's, for which Pakistan has emerged as one of the most important markets for defense exports and co production of defense synergies. Turkey has been playing a key role in Pakistan's drone and aerospace technology. Islamabad acquired a range of battle tested equipment, including the advanced Turkish drones such as the Bayraktar TB2s, the Akansis, and Songars, and all of these have been deployed against India in Operation Sindoor. Pakistan has also engaged with Ankara in integrating advanced weapon systems like Kenmank's cruise missiles. The cooperation doesn't end there. Turkey is poised to offer Pakistan its fifth generation Khan fighter, now under development with joint project teams that include around 150 Pakistani aerospace engineers. If latest Department of State report on Pakistan's air capabilities getting a fillip from 36 J-10Cs from China is indeed accurate, a later addition of fifth generation Khans on the heels of a likely J-35 procurement for China would be an enhancement to Pakistan's fifth generation network centric capabilities. Now, this should be a matter of grave concern for India. Turkey has already been inching closer to make the most of Pakistan China bonhomie. For instance, consider this. China Pakistan co produced JF 17s are now getting exported to Azerbaijan, and these JF 17s have Turkish missiles on them. Turkey has already undertaken the upgrade of 41 F 16 fighter jets for Pakistani Air Force, with final deliveries completed as recently as last year. Do you think that's all? But there's more. In air to air capabilities, Pakistan and Turkey cooperate in Gokdogan, Gokdogan ER, which is the extended ranges, and Gokhan BVR programs. And BVR here stands for Beyond Visual Range. The former type is capable of being deployed on F 16s and combat versions of Bayraktars, the drones, and the latter type is comparable to Meteor ranges. These will be adding to Islamabad's PL-15 BVR capabilities from China, which were made famous during Operation Sindoor. I hope you remember that. Now let's consider Turkey's role in Pakistan's naval modernization, which is a prominent example of Turkey's Milgem project, an initiative to design and build naval warships using entirely domestic capabilities. It started in July 2018 when the two sides signed up for four Ada class corvettes. Ever since, the naval bonhomie has been growing steadily. Just last week, Pakistan announced the delivery of its second Babur class corvette, the PNS Khaibar, from Turkey. The first ship in this series, the PNS Babur, had been delivered earlier on 24th May 2024. As part of the same program, two additional vessels being built at Karachi shipyard, the PNS Badr and the PNS Tariq, are expected to get commissioned by late 2026 and the first quarter of 2027. And now let's come to our eastern neighbor, Turkey and Bangladesh, where a similar trajectory of defense cooperation is seen. Now, when it comes to Bangladesh, as if Sheikh Hasina's ouster in August 2024 hasn't led to enough chaos already, Dhaka's new defense energies are unnervingly similar to Pakistan's trajectory. China has been Bangladesh's topmost exporter of military hardware, just like it is for Pakistan. But lately, Dhaka has been forging deeper strategic and defense ties with Turkey for the battle tested equipment it brings on the table at a cheaper cost. And this is also very similar to what Pakistan is doing. In 2025, reports mentioned that Bangladesh Investment Development Authority, or the BETA, is planning to establish defense industrial complexes in Chittagong and Narayanganj in partnership with Turkish defense firms. In 2024, Bangladesh had purchased about 18 MKE Boran 105 howitzers with plans to eventually scale the fleet up to 200 units. Dhaka is also in discussions to acquire the TRG rocket systems and Tulpar light tanks from Turkey. This October, which is just 2 months ago, Bangladesh's Air Chief Marshal Hassan Mahmood Khan made a high profile visit to Turkey, and soon reports started floating of Turkey planning to supply the Hisar O plus medium range and the Saipur long range surface to air missile systems. Recently, the Bangladesh Air Force has also planned on modernizing their fighter fleet with 20 J-10Cs jets from China, valued at about $2.5 billion. There are also reports of Dhaka now eyeing a squadron of Eurofighter Typhoons. However, in my opinion, it would be far more cost effective for Dhaka to instead go for the fifth generation Khan jets instead of signing up for an advanced and sophisticated Western jet known for achieving air dominance, which is a different role. In regional military equations in South Asia, acquiring jets with multi role capabilities and stealth is more logical a decision any day. And just like for Pakistan, Turkey has plans for Bangladesh's naval modernization as well. Now, collectively, these developments underline a steadily expanding and multifaceted Turkey Bangladesh partnership, which is anchored in defense industrial collaboration, capability building, and growing institutional confidence between the two sides. Now, the key takeaway for New Delhi is that this whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Indian strategic discussions have largely underanalyzed Turkey's defense industry ecosystem in Pakistan and Bangladesh. It took us an Operation Sindoor to even start discussing Turkey's defense industry profile and its implications for India. Now, with Tariq Rahman back, and as Bangladesh heads towards 2026 elections, talk of a Pakistan Bangladesh defense pact is also circulating. I'm sure you've seen some news regarding that. Now, even if at this juncture one cannot assess what kind of defense pact it could be, growing Turkey Pakistan defense synergies are likely to seep into Bangladesh's military modernization. It is highly likely that this overlapping integration would be complemented by China, which will collectively be a bigger challenge to India's security calculus than merely the sum of its parts. I will be tracking the different strategic layers of defense industry cooperation and subsystem integrations between China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Turkey, so you stay tuned.